have no grenades or anything, so this is my only option to warp out of here. I want a car immediately here. I'm not in first person because I want to give myself the larger camera. This drive is short, so I was going to take, you know, the best close vehicle. That white car I just passed is probably the best car that you can get in that section. Damn. Getting the cops on me between missions isn't usually a huge concern because when you go into missions, you lose the cops immediately. Looking at the game audio, it looks louder than it's meant to be. I'm not sure why that is. I'm hoping I'm coming through clear. I jumped there to avoid a bit of this slow motion walk.
Well, isn't this nice? You didn't tell me we were double. You can't teach an old dog tricks.
The game wants to force me to walk here, but I use a take cover to get out of the range of Dave, which allows me to run. I jump here again to avoid some slow motion walking. It would be nice to break off the door here, but the doors are very resilient in this game, so trying would likely just end up me... It would likely just have me bounce off the pole.
I need you to make a couple of calls. Get some people on board. First guy is Franklin.
I'm not asking for bits, but can someone give me some feedback on the audio? Does it seem like the game is too loud, or...
Okay.
The only way that I have to communicate with my chat is... is my stream labels thing. So one bit comes up and stuff. So this is the first interaction that all three characters are going to have together. Dave, of course, is the guy who Michael made the deal with all those years ago. Dave is now having trouble in the FIB because there's rogue agents there and stuff, and there's competition between the various intelligence bureaus. In this case, there's a particular guy who has some intel that the IAA has taken, and Steve and Dave, who both work at the FIB, they want to get this agent to get the information first and take out the terrorist guy. So Dave has recruited Michael, Trevor, and Franklin to help him take the informants, or take the asset from the IAA. Sounds fine. Okay, thank you. So Trevor is still under the impression that Michael, you know, was helping the FIB. And Steve and Dave, of course, you know, they are themselves a corrupt entity within the FIB. It's why they're working with Trevor, despite Trevor being on the FIB wanted list. Because obviously this isn't a sanctioned stealing from the IAA mission. It's Steve and Dave wanting the glory or what have you. Or do they give some other reason? No, I think it's the glory. Yeah, budget competition or something. Next, I'll have this thing so far up your ass, your tonsils will be. This is Michelle from GTA 4, the one who broke Nico's house, kind of.
Cinema equipment, not surveillance. Grab his other arm. No.
This is just some guy who
See how you feel with this is 18 inches.
well, to my understanding, he's just some guy who happened to install some equipment at this guy's house that the FIB and IAA are looking for. It's been a while since I've watched the cutscenes, but that's what I can recall at least. So Franklin's over here sniping, Trevor's flying the helicopter, and Michael is extracting the asset. These guys are perfectly consistent, so very easy to take out. This is the somewhat hard pass, taking out this helicopter in as few shots as possible. 3 is about average. And then flying in a particular way here to get the helicopters to crash into the building. It's somewhat precise. Okay. This last helicopter, I just have to hope Michael takes it out by the time I get back. If I drive full speed, the other helicopter won't have time to catch up, so I'm just kind of hanging back a little bit. This should be quite good. There we go. If anything, I could have flown faster there. Michael was very fast in taking them out. So most of this time loss is because of the lack of immediate vehicle at the beginning. It loses you quite a bit of time compared to perfect RNG. So I want Franklin to receive a
man, I'm drunk, but I ain't getting drunker.
Particular text message, so I'm putting on sleep mode. I want him to receive a text message from Lester telling him about an opportunity to assassinate someone for money. Unfortunately, I did not receive it, which is not the end of the world in this category, but it means there's a potential that I'm going to have to wait later on for that mission to spawn.
Where's this thing happening?
So Trevor has gone to, you know, say hello to Franklin, and this happens to be when Lamar shows up and is like, hey yo, let's go buy some drugs, and Trevor's coming to help. And of course, with all Lamar's deals, it goes south. They try to bamboozle Lamar and Franklin by giving them fake drugs, or rather like a very tiny amount of real drugs and like a brick of drywall. Hello, Chop. Does nothing in this mission, but he's still so cute. So this is probably the first mission where Trevor's ability is really, really useful in terms of saving time. What I'm going to do here is take out a bunch of guys. The bare minimum, in fact. I'm now going to use Trevor's power to run past all these gangsters. And then I'll fail intentionally at the end, and this will enable Lamar and Franklin to skip ahead and catch up to me. If I didn't use Trevor's power here, I'd either die or not be able to do this skip. So all the gangsters, as you can see, have despawned. Conveniently, jet skis in the river. What a coincidence. Well, a river, more like sewer, but you know.
What the fuck are you doing?
This way. Damn, it's stinking this motherfucker. Shit ain't no river, man. It's a motherfucking sewer. Then we're in the right place.
So there's no reason to kill any of these enemies, blow up the helicopter, none of it matters. I'm just trying to get to the end point as fast as possible without losing Lamar or Franklin. Getting in front of them is a little bit of a liability in that they can somewhat rubber band and run into me and knock me off my jet ski. But as long as I'm careful and I hang off to the right here, that doesn't usually happen. So the game expects us to go forward here, ahead of the bridge, but instead we turn around. This confuses the game, so normally it would spawn endless amounts of police on Trevor, but because I've gone a completely different route than what they expect, I'll receive no spawns of police. At best, this one helicopter will chase after me. I'm hoping it despawns. It's not a huge concern if it doesn't despawn, but there we go. Okay. There's a very tiny chance a helicopter can spawn here, but even if I get the cops on me again, it just ruins my ability to split here. I'll lose the cops before I get to the point where the next mission is. This is a good car to get here. This is another spot where it's just a random vehicle. So I'm not sure if it was really obvious back there, but when I moved from third person to third person, Trevor kind of stopped a little bit before he started running again. For some reason, in different scenes in the game, moving from first person to third person isn't fluid. In most scenes, changing, like, you keep all of your momentum between third person and first person, but in other scenes there's a small little hiccup. They stop a little bit when you change camera. Not sure why that is, but it's not a huge concern. I mean, in one or two scenes it is a concern. Like, there's one or two scenes where I might use first person, but because of that small hiccup of a step, I don't, because it risks me getting shot. This is one of the worst missions in the game, unfortunately. It involves me doing a bunch of silly little minigames.
Trevor is a what?
Trevor is a what?
You know where the port is? Come on then, Floyd. What you got for me? Like I said, I don't rightly know what we
So we don't use the main character's vehicles all that often, but a lot of missions like this one require you to use these particular vehicles. It's not something consistent with this game whether you are allowed to change vehicles or not. Some missions allow you to change vehicles, others don't. So I'm going to go over a jump here. Normally jumps would give you slow-mo, which costs us time, but instead I'm going to bring out my gun, which skips the slow-mo. It in fact makes the jumps a lot easier, in fact. I don't know if people find the slow-mo to be cool, but personally it's just annoying.
He's real good with numbers. I don't want to hijack a truck full of pineapples, Floyd. You need to give
Like, when people mention their least favorite missions, it's this one, Sky in the Porsche, then there's Mini Sub, which is coming up later, then Yoga, and then cleaning out the bureau. This is bad RNG, having the train in my way, very uncommon.
Private army to the New World Order. My butt's gone. The folks waging outsourced shadow wars in 20 countries around the globe and recently cleared to operate on
Yeah,
US
so
soil.
Floyd works here at this pier, and Trevor is asking him, hey look, is there anything of value here that I can steal? And Floyd is like, I don't know, they don't tell us what's in the crates, but there is a bunch of private security around for this particular crate on this particular ship. And Trevor's like, oh really? Well, let's go steal that then. I'll need to scout around, take some pictures, and then we can set up how he wants to perform this heist. So, like, this mission makes sense and has a purpose, in the story. It gives Floyd and Wade something to do, gives Trevor a reason to hang around with them. It has some decent dialogue, but it's just not a fun mission. You see me walking super slow here. No one wants to do this in a game.
How's a man in a hurry supposed to get in and out of this?
The mini games aren't fun either.
Got a port that stretched to 50 feet.
Now, what's the Coast Guard response like?
Well, they got cutters, 45-foot response vessels, air support. You're not gonna move much faster than them, especially if you're carrying something.
Maybe I'll have to saddle you up and ride you across the Miriam-Turner overpass.
I just said they have the water surface real covered.
Real covered. I can't even like push him forward or something.
What do you think they got on it?
There's not really many optimizations for this. Running in first person, there's a small chance of a warp going into this crate mover.
Weird about that?
For the same reason you can warp into other vehicles sometimes. The door's blocked. I try to get in when Floyd's trying to get in and the game gets confused and warps me in.
Curiosity.
I don't get it very often though.
Weather guys at 2 o'clock. They're giving Forrest a hard time, all right.
You! We need 2 guys on the handler. Couple of containers and Bay B gotta be brought.
There's also technically another strat that you can do here with these 2 crates that I'm about to move. It is technically possible to... Damn. It is technically possible to move them both at the same time, but only if you have very low FPS. FPS doesn't massively screw with the physics. Like, if you've ever seen a run of Doom, you can't do that kind of thing in this game. But there are some physics oddities related to FPS. Physics oddities related to FPS. In the same, like, you get small speed boosts going over curbs, but the amount of speed you get depends on your FPS. It's not like insanely different, but if you had insanely high FPS, you would get a little bit of more of a speed boost. These 2 crates, you could technically move at the same time by pushing one into the other. If you had very low FPS, for some reason the collision doesn't really work the way it's meant to. It was always a puzzle why one old runner named Dates was able to do this strat and no one else was. And no one else was able to. And the answer turned out to be his computer was worse.
I'll need a proper view.
There's the cranes, but...
Crane! Perfect!
Oh, shoot.
Wasn't a very smooth pickup there.
And attach it.
And attach it.
Whose dick you have to suck to get this job? Being a stevedore used to be back-breaking work. Now you're paid brain surgeon bucks to push an oversized shopping cart.
I did not fellatiate no one to get this job.
I did not
There was old
believe.
friends with the...
If my work here is
So
done,
first
I'm
person,
going up the gantry.
Not sure if I mentioned it before, but climbing things is slower in first person. In the same way that it's slower to get in vehicles in first person, so whenever I'm climbing, you'll see me switch to third person. When I'm running upstairs or something, you'll see me switch to first person.
Hey! There ain't time to admire the view. I've been waiting
You
on
don't
the
need
green
first
for nearly
person to
an
go into
hour.
this, but
I'm not
it's harder to
permitted
miss if you're in
drive
first
cranes,
person.
buddy.
Hey, you need me to get your union rep up here right now? Sooner you get in the cab, sooner we can get out of here.
This is on you.
That's it. You're in position. It's hooked up, so lift it high enough. to
Was
clear
a
that
fun,
stack.
interactive
Move to the other
gameplay
end.
minigame.
We need to
Oh
go
my
to the
god.
other end. Bay 5.
My favorite thing in Grand Theft Auto games is moving crates. Like, why twice though? As one of the things that I always question about this, why make people do this twice? Do you think that people enjoy it so much doing it once that they're like, look, we got to give this to them twice. There's gonna be riots in the streets if we don't make them move 2 crates twice. Why not 1 blue crate and 1 orange crate, or just the blue crates?
Over the second container in Bay 1.
Do they think people were buying GTA 5 for the port simulator? Like, it makes no sense at all. One day we'll find out that behind the scenes there's some loading of something going on and they needed this to distract us from the loading. I don't know. It just makes no sense. There's nothing you can do to speed it up. It is what it is. This ladder, I can also jump up. Again, one of the few ladders you can jump up. Damn it, missed it. Hard to do in first person. Okay, jump here and try not to fall off. Just taking the 3 pictures, getting that information. Another death abuse thing. The spawn point is down the bottom of the ladder where we need to go anyway, so there's no reason to climb down when we can just kill ourselves.
It's over on the other dock. So they've been guarding
It's
one of
over
them
on the
dry docks.
other dock.
We can take a look at it, but no one's allowed around there.
Normal rules don't apply to us, Floyd. We're going in.
Yeah, so we're going to steal a briefcase of information that just happens to be there from the Merryweather guys at the end here, while they're beating up on Floyd. Unfortunately, it's another scene where I have to take the vehicle that they've given me. I can't even ditch the trailer. But at the end, it's random what vehicle I get, or if I get a vehicle at all. I mean, 99% of the time there's a vehicle there, but, you know, 1% of the time it's a cement mixer or something. But the speed of the vehicle you get will, of course, influence how fast you get back to the end of the mission. That was closer than I normally do it, but okay.
Sorry, you're gonna have to go it alone.
Just gonna quickly look. Okay, there's no cars parked. I mean, no actual cars. Yeah, there's a car over here, but it's not very good. It is, in fact, one of the worst vehicles. Oh, that is not one of the worst vehicles, though. It's time loss. Time loss. It's very rare for another car to spawn here. But it's good enough that it's probably worth getting. Especially by comparison to that black car. This is one of the better cars you can get in this spot. It's Franklin's car. It's not actually Franklin's car, but it's the same vehicle kind of thing. Or close enough. So this drive should be pretty smooth, even if it was a bit of a rocky start getting the vehicle itself. Sometimes you have to drive out using the truck to get a vehicle, which loses you quite a bit of time. And then it's the same sort of drive that we did before, going back to Floyd's house. You find that you end up taking the same routes a few times throughout the mission. It's not a different route every time, because sometimes there's just one optimal way to get to a particular location. But there's a lot what I'm doing here in terms of like balancing my vehicle using shift and control, and I'm going up and down on particular points to make the drive as smooth as possible. Like, I take a lot of what I do for granted, in that I don't think, because I've been doing it for so long, it doesn't seem too hard for me. But when I watch other people run this game and I see them crash every like 10 minutes, and I'm just like, you know, it gives me perspective on the gameplay. Because it seems so easy to me, but it, you know, I sometimes forget that it's not as easy as I think.
Find a permanent solution, a transorbital solution, in just 20 minutes. Originally pushed underground.
I wonder what time Hugo got. I saw he was doing a run before I started. You see me punching up the stairs there? That's one of the times where using first person to run upstairs doesn't work. It forces you to walk.
Okay, all right.
I'm actually surprised I'm losing this much time. Okay, well, I mean, I guess it did take me a while to get into a vehicle, didn't it? This is a random switch. Michael may be at his house, or he might be a minute away. 90% of the time, he's at his house. Yep. It would be really unlucky to not get the long stretch switch, and then to not get this switch either. Like, so this run isn't that bad. Ultimately, it just looks really bad because I got the bad switch at the beginning, which cost me that minute.
I don't know about this.
Hate this bug.
We have a very long road to travel with you.
It's been happening a bit more recently, so I was testing there whether the bug happens when I
In and out with the rest, Mikhail.
do the keyboard part or the mouse part first. I don't know what it is, but for some reason,
And out through those wrinkled
maybe the game is confused as to exactly where my mouse is. So when I try to move it for the first time, it jerks itself around a bit to figure out where it is, and that jerking itself around on the screen is what causes Michael to lose his footing.
Something more complicated.
I feel like I'm channeling bullshit right now.
But now that it knows where the mouse is, I won't have that problem. But I think if I move the mouse first, I wouldn't have that issue.
Erect. Turgid.
So hopefully that won't happen ever again, if I can remember that for next time, along with the other 70 billion things that I have to remember. There's nothing to speed up this yoga, it's just abysmal. I mean, as I say with these things, like, doing this once is probably not particularly arduous, but doing it in a speedrun is kind of irritating. The rest of this mission is quite cool, especially
Forgets to breathe.
the various strats in it. You'll notice that I use third person to run through the house, then I use first person to run up the stairs, then I switch to third person to get a jump into Jimmy's room to avoid a slowdown. Then
Breathing is almost
I'll call a bunch of taxis.
thing, no?
So in this mission, Jimmy drugs Michael to steal his car and run off, having stolen some of Michael's money. But in the normal casual gameplay, you have to drive back to Michael's house while being drugged, and that is quite difficult. So what we do is we make a bunch of phone calls, and these phone calls to taxis prevents Michael from becoming drugged. It's kind of funny, really, because I'll try and show you. You can watch in the car where the
Breathe, please, Mikhail.
the cup of drugs that Jimmy tries to give to Michael, Michael doesn't grab it, so it levitates in midair while we're driving along.
And release it. Breathe out.
But yeah, so the rest of the mission is good, just not the yoga part.
Jimmy, you still here? James!
Go away. Oh yeah, fuck.
Nice TV. Did I pay for that?
Yeah, you smashed the other one, didn't you?
Unlike in the previous scene where we needed to run around to get Jimmy to run, Jimmy will now only run if we get into a vehicle. Inconsistent. Yay.
Where's your friend?
So I didn't open the door for Jimmy because that would have been
Yeah,
slower.
nice to see the kids are still hanging out at the burger joints. Me and the guys, we go down to the diner at the class every day. Get milkshakes.
Bad time to stretch my fingers there.
Please. You know, you're really creeping me out.
I'm trying to relate to you.
No.
Another moment where the yellow line is not the fastest route.
Oh, says the dope smoking game playing.
It doesn't take into account like how much speed you lose going around bends and stuff.
I knew it. The mask was gonna slip.
So we in general want the most direct route with as fewer turns possible.
Bitter, vindictive old man. You pretend you're being a father, but you
Hugo got a
I
742.
hate you, Jim. How many times?
Classic was in practice. What's his PB?
There he is, the friendly neighborhood drug dealer. Yo. Alrighty then. Now what? Can we just get back to the house, please?
I mean, not to toot my own horn, but that's kind of what I mean, right? Hugo is a good player, but he does a run and he's an hour behind the time I'm likely to get in this run, you know. Clearly, I'm just more practiced, of course, but sometimes I forget, because the only other person I watch do runs most of the time is Torix, and Torix is just as good as me. So I lose perspective on how hard a lot of what I'm doing is. So these phone calls is preventing Michael from getting drugs. I think I forgot to show you the cup, but whatever. For the purposes of the cutscene, of course, the game still assumes you got drugged because that's what's meant to happen.
What? You anesthetize me? You fucking shit?
I'm protecting you from yourself. Also, I took money from your bank account and I'm moving out, alright?
What?
You're too crazy, Dad. Goodbye.
Jimmy!
Another small cutscene that I cannot skip for some weird reason. Does give me a chance to pour myself some sweet, sweet Pepsi Max. It is very unlikely that I won't lose some time here because of the Michael bug thing at the beginning of Yoga. And it's random what car I get on the road here. Thank you, Jake. What do you want, Michael? RIP bitrate. I mean, if I get a perfect mini sub and a perfect blitz play, I can get this run back on track to being world record pace. There are only 3 bad splits in my world record. Mini sub, blitz play, which is both large parts RNG, and then the final mission, which is me screwing up. God, this is bad RNG. This is a fast car, but the drive is so short that I'd rather an immediate car over there than a fast car here. Especially because I'm drugged and it's not easy to drive. This isn't as drugged as you would normally get in the other scene. As in, like, you get far more drugs in the other scene. It's not that difficult to drive here is what I'm saying. Just a little bit weird.
I'm back!
So this is one of the few runs, this is one of the few missions in the game you can start with a phone call. Wait, are there any other missions? There are side missions you can start with phone calls. But, yeah. If you don't make this call, then Steve can call you at other times to start it. It's funny, actually, you can even start that mission with, well, this mission with Trevor. But Trevor doesn't have Steve in your phone. So, but if you know Steve's phone number, you can call Steve with Trevor and start the mission.
Yeah, the more I see of your boss, the more I like it.
If I was you, I wouldn't be so critical.
Again, taking a very strange route.
So is he gonna be a problem?
For sure. But there's nothing we can do about it. If something happened to him right now, I'd be right under a microscope. An electron microscope of bureaucratic shit.
So this is ending the whole saga, helping, well, this particular saga with helping the Steve and Dave with the FIB. We've now kidnapped the guy, as you saw previously, and we are now going to torture him in the infamous torture scene to get the information that we need to take out the guy of interest to the FIB, get in that sweet, sweet glory.
Trevor flips out, beheads me, kills my family, or raises them as his own.
This torture scene is just a cutscene. You don't actually see anything. I would even argue it's kind of blown out of proportion how graphic the torture scene is if you do one of the other options. But of course, we're just interested in doing the, well, one crash in an hour or whatever. It's not too bad.
The fuck does that matter?
Yeah, we want to do the fastest thing possible, so the fastest thing is using the wrench, which is just a cutscene.
Mr. Phillips.
That's it.
So how are Steve and Trevor getting along?
Seems like a productive relationship.
You know, like I said, he's got his uses.
And as you can see, we're trying to take full advantage of it.
Then what?
This thing with the agency gets put to rest, and we
This
don't need
particular driving route is interesting to me. Like, it seems very simple,
I need some
but
resolution, Dave.
we did a different route here for like
You said you'd clean the
2
whole
years.
thing up back in North Yankton.
And you
It
told
took
me it'd be a
until
clean job, no casualties. There were more
like
eyes on
we
that
started routing 100% to
Yeah, well,
to
according to
change
my
that route
eyes,
ever so slightly.
it's
And
your problem, Dave, as much as he is mine.
whenever I do that drive, I think to myself, what were we thinking that we didn't think to
Has he said
take
anything
that
about
route
Brad?
a long
Yeah,
time
he
ago?
has.
But anyway, doesn't matter.
Keep changing the subject.
It-
You know, he thinks you might
I just think of it every time
actually
because
when this is all over.
it's just impressive how
Fine work.
different categories have impacted each other in terms of discoveries. Just routing 100% has taught me so much more about this game than I ever knew before. So under normal circumstances, we'd
What the hell?
That was the guy.
not be certain who the guy is, but of course we know immediately because we've done this 1,000 times.
Got him. It's done.
Woo! That is a wrap, my friend.
This jump is kind of tight.
How you feeling?
It fails because we don't go the right distance, but of course we don't care if we get the stunt jump.
No one likes a crybaby. You look great.
Let me see the mirror.
So Trevor has been commanded to dispose of this guy.
You need to leave.
Trevor, of course, doesn't like being told what to do, so he drops him off at the airport instead.
Told you. Don't like being told what
After
to
this
do.
is a RNG mission called Minisub. I mentioned it previously as one of the worst missions in this game. All it involves is waiting for a text message to tell me that the Minisub has been found,
I work for the force
and then I drive to the Minisub,
departures. No one
and
drives
then
me.
I drive the Minisub to its destination, which takes many minutes. So this is RNG in that I don't know how long it's going to take for me to get this text message. As you can see, I have 1 minute and 10 seconds to save. It is quite unusual to have to wait for the Minisub text message. The last 2 runs that I've done, I've waited 1 minute and 10 seconds. So I'm kind of due to get normal RNG here. See, I could go over that very fast, but I'd fly into the air, and there's always the possibility that I hit a car. Come on, game, be kind for once. Like, it, as I say, it's random what phone calls or text messages you receive. I put on sleep mode, but there are no phone calls that Trevor receives here. And sleep mode, of course, only blocks phone calls. That could be it. That is a good sound. Oh, nice. Okay. Gonna save myself a sweet, sweet minute-ish. Because this drive has not been perfect. I've slowed down quite a bit. Of course, given that I'm not going to be waiting here, this means I'm going to receive fewer text messages, which impacts future missions. Because I'll have more text messages in my bank, and when I need a different text message, I'll have to compete with, you know, I'll have a larger pool to randomly select from. The other categories are much worse in this regard, because when you taxi around, you have even less time to get text messages. So, like on pure any percent, I might wait here for 2 or 3 minutes before Minisub will finally spawn. It's why Classic percent, while being slightly slower by like 20-30 minutes, it's a more entertaining run because there's less waiting around. Not that I'm saying there's a ridiculous amount of waiting around in say 80% no mission skip, but this run just flows more. There are no strats here other than being above the water is faster. You may notice that there's no waves here, it's perfectly flat. This is because of patch 1.27. For whatever reason, on patch 1.27 there are no waves. If I were to load a save file multiple times, or do a mission replay, the waves would reappear, but for the entire run, the ocean's going to be completely flat. That is the biggest reason why we use patch 1.27. It's also a very stable patch. There's no stuttering or what have you. There's also it was added later on that to leave a mechanic, you have to press escape then enter to leave. This makes sense, of course, because a lot of people would go to a mechanic and accidentally press escape too many times and be forced out of the mechanic. But for us, we want to get out of the mechanic as fast as possible, so the confirming enter is annoying for us. It doesn't exist on this patch, so that saves us a little bit of time when we go to the mechanic. Additionally, on the later patches, there's a bug on Monkey Business where when you arrive at the mission, the characters that are there get spooked and run away, so the mission despawns and you have to drive away and come back. It costs you about a minute. So this is one of those cases where future patches have added inconvenient bugs into the game and fixed, you know, the one good bug that we use, that being the oceans. Save warping also used to not be possible on the later patches, but it is currently possible on the later patches. But as I say, not important for Classic Percent, because we do not allow save warps. So this is fairly simple, nice and quiet. I mean, I could turn the radio on, but you know, you never know what songs are going to come on. I mean, I really hope that the language in this game doesn't matter. I mean, it's no worse than what's in a lot of songs these days, I guess, but I guess those songs probably wouldn't be played at GDQ either. I don't know. As I say, I can potentially run with a mod removing the explicit language, but I don't know how that would affect the run. Or even if those mods still work. I've never used them, I just know they exist. We're so close. What a fun and exciting mission that Rockstar has enabled us to do. Bravo.
It's just down the road. Los Santos Marine, past the shipyards.
So I've got another minute and 50 something seconds to save on Blitzplay. Blitzplay isn't a singular mission, it's the name of an entire section. Well, the final mission in that section is called Blitzplay, but it involves doing the Merryweather heist, the getaway car, the boiler suits, the garbage truck, the tow truck, the masks side mission, it's a setup for the heist, and assassination. What order I do these missions in depends on what switch I get with Franklin and whether I find a garbage truck or a tow truck on the road. So that's why there's not a there's not an individual split for each part, because the order will change. This is a pretty fast car. Good time save, not complete time save, but what can you do? The odds of me getting back in the green after this is quite low, but you know, we can try. Like, the RNG would have to be really good, and my gameplay would have to be really good. Like, this is a good car, don't get me wrong, but the odds of me receiving the text message for the B is quite low. I mean, receiving it before I get there. Because that is the first piece of the puzzle. Okay, I didn't receive it. It is possible to receive it even when I'm this close to the mission, like the mission would spawn there. But if I did receive it now, it just wouldn't spawn until I left the area. That should be it. Great. The reason why I drove up here is because I need to sit out of range of the mission to allow it to spawn, but going downhill is a little bit faster.
We handled your little immigration problem, whatever the fuck.
So ideally, I'd rather it spawn before I got there, but if it doesn't spawn before I get there, I sit up the top.
Here's Trevor.
I would describe how far away you need to be, but it'd be hard to explain. I'm taking a risk going up here. Yeah, it was greedy of me. Oh! Greed paid off. Greed, for lack of better terms, is good. So this is a pretty decent spot to get a garbage truck. There is a perfectly consistent garbage truck that the game wants you to get. Did he not? Okay. Alright. Could get the cops on me. It's unlikely. You have to hit that guy. But he managed to dodge me. So I shot him with my pistol in the leg to prevent him from calling the cops. So the game nicely spawns me a car here that I can use as my getaway car. Right now, I'd like to get a tow truck. But a tow truck is far less common than the garbage truck. Some nice chill beats here. So this is putting the getaway car for when we want to use it for the Blitz play mission later. I see no tow trucks, which is fine. Now I'm going to switch to Franklin and hope I switch close to masks and assassination while getting a good car that's on the road. I do not see one. That black car. What is that black car?
Oh, man, this
That's, yeah, I thought that's what it was. Okay. Could have taken that bike. It's a little far away there. Yes, this is not good RNG. Plus assassination has not spawned yet. If it doesn't spawn, I might see if I can find myself a vehicle. This is why I wanted assassination to spawn before. It's bad RNG and I can't find myself a decent vehicle. I can't believe I can't find myself a vehicle. And I can't believe it hasn't spawned yet. What a perfectly bad time for that to spawn. And my car left. Okay, this is massive time loss. Wow. Okay. There is literally not a worse frame that could have spawned on. It spawned the nanosecond I got out of my vehicle. When I was the max possible distance away from it. This game sometimes, you feel like it's malicious, like it knows what you're doing, it knows what you're trying to achieve. Everyone complained in GTA 4 about the phone calls for missions, the headaches that it causes, not knowing where to go. I'm very happy that in GTA 5 they dialed it down a bit, but I hope they do none of this in GTA 6. It's just terrible. Like, if you need phone calls to start missions, can you make it so there's a redundant thing where if you move to a certain location, it can also trigger the phone call immediately? This RNG is just absolutely unnecessary. or getting the game to prioritize phone calls or text messages or making them spawn after a certain duration. There's no reason for this RNG. It doesn't make the game better for casuals, it makes it worse for casuals, and it certainly makes it worse for speedrunners. It's terrible. So I have the fortune here of being able to look for a vehicle. So I don't have a bad vehicle the entire time, but of course the drive here would have been nicer with a better vehicle. Is that Jester up there? Yeah, I'll get the Jester. The Jester is just overall a very good vehicle, and given that this vehicle is going to be driven by Trevor in Abyss, a vehicle with good handling is quite useful. So we have all the time in the world to set ourselves up here. Keep the door open. Waiting for this guy to be in range for assassination. This is a very long section, because there's a lot of small missions that go into it.
Man, you get what you give out, Mr. Lowry.
I wonder how many people in chat are like, remember Matt, get the boiler suits. The mission order here varies depending upon category, because when you have taxis you have a bit more leeway in what you do in what order. It's sometimes hard to remember the different strats and stuff for all the categories. Okay, I got Merryweather Heist there, that's very good. So this is where I'm going to buy myself a grenade launcher. There's a small delay when I'm buying weapons here, that's just on this patch. Well, it's on a lot of different patches at the beginning, but it is on this one. I can't afford this car either, but I can steal it. So again, avoiding the slow-mo here. Using my power when I landed to stabilize the vehicle. Really? Gonna park it like this so that it turns itself around. When I say it turns itself around, when I start this mission, the vehicle will be pointing outside the house rather than internal. You'll see what I'm saying. See, it's facing that way now. There's a few missions you can do that on, where depending upon where you park the vehicle, it influences whether it despawns and respawns.
Almost forgot. Here's the rifle with a thermal scope.
Almost forgot. I was kind of sold on like a well-organized.
Sometimes it's advantageous to get the game to spawn your main vehicle. In such cases, you can just blow up the vehicle that you took to the mission. That usually works. So on 100%, for example, we start that mission with a tow truck, and we don't want to use a tow truck for this drive, so we blow it up before the mission starts. And we get defaulted with Franklin's vehicle. There's even dialogue related to taking Franklin's vehicle. Like Franklin will say, "Oh, we're taking my car, are we? Cool."
government uses to fight its wars and protect its shady interests. all
Yeah,
over the
so
planet. They're the
Trevor
army,
just giving more
they're
exposition about why we hate
only they're private, so they cost
Merryweather.
more. Anyway, they've just been cleared to take government contracts on US
This was
soil.
the highest
What's
associated with
on
scouting the
list?
port. This is the ship that we're going to blow up,
I'll stop the car
that we
immediately
scoped
here.
out before.
Get out, find your spot on the side of the bridge, and call Michael.
Okay, man, sure. Hey, dog, I'm in position. Let me know when you're ready.
Yo, dog.
All right, F, I'm in position. Damn, that's a long way up. So make sure I don't run into any trouble when I get there.
Ah, my
Fucking
knuckles.
Trevor.
All right, I got you, homie.
Can shoot these two guys at the same time, which would be nice, but I'm not going to do it this time because I'm bad.
It's clear, man. Climb aboard.
I'm not even sure that really saves time. In this game, you can hold a gun and throw C4 at the same time, which is quite good.
I got 4
So I'll bring out my pistol here.
Look out for me while I do it.
I am just applying a bunch of C4.
Bomb, ready to go. Moving up. to
Franklin
position
is
2.
meant to help me out by killing people here, but he's not very good at his job. I use my power there because there's a small chance that
Right, okay.
the game can bug and the guys can fire their entire clip in half a second and kill me. It's not very likely, mind you, but it does very rarely happen. Happens online too.
Charge is set. I gotta go inside for the last.
Happens on every patch.
Come to the side of the ship. I'll clear the engines for you.
Doors here.
This is hard to be optimal with these shots. Oh, he died that time, finally. Ah. Didn't get the driver. Okay, I got it all in one clip, which is good, but I didn't get any double shots there. Like, or did I get one? You want to kill 2 guys with 1 bullet wherever possible. This is tough to get in 1 shot. I'm hoping I can get it. Nice. Sometimes you hit him and he doesn't die in 1 shot. That was very good. It was very good. Tooting my own horn there, but that was actually quite good. Especially compared to last time. This is one of the only cutscenes that can't be skipped by clicking. Very strange, just 2 random cutscenes that you can skip faster just by pressing space, pressing enter, then clicking. Again, perhaps suggesting that different missions were made by different people. So after this, we have one last thing to do, which is the tow truck. And then Blitzplay will spawn. Not that it's worth explaining it. There's... Blitzplay will immediately spawn on the map if... well, almost immediately. Depending upon what of the missions you end with before Blitzplay will influence how fast it spawns. So if I were to have done tow truck before this and did Merryweather heist, the heist that I'm doing right now, if I were to do that last, Blitzplay wouldn't spawn immediately, and I'd have to do some RNG stuff where I have to hope that Michael gets a phone call or what have you to start the mission. In this case, I'll be ending with the tow truck mission, so it will spawn consistently. But doing the tow truck this late is not the fastest route. I would much preferred had I with Trevor all the way at the beginning that I happened to find a tow truck on the road. Because as I say, there's a perfectly consistent tow truck and there's a perfectly consistent garbage truck, but they're both further away from the point where you need to drop them off compared to finding one on the road.
You're ready to lift me out, Floyd. Nearly there.
Here I am. I'm also hoping that Franklin has his car here. Not that it matters a huge deal. Especially without using the iFruit app, which is not allowed anymore. Damn. But it is better to have his car. His car is slightly faster. Even with doing wheelies with this bike. Because this bike is terrible. There's also the 1 in a billion chance that I will get hit by a car here and fall off and die. I cannot recall that ever happening, but you know, this is a bad bike. One of the worst things about bikes though is Franklin's power isn't really useful with them. It doesn't give you the ridiculous turning and handling and stuff that you get with cars. That was actually very smooth. Using my power here so I don't get too much air. Like, air looks cool, but you know, you hang in the air for so long and you don't, you know, move forward as much as you would if you were on the ground. I could deliver this tow truck with anyone. I mean, I could have done it with Trevor or Michael or whatever, but of course Franklin's ability just makes this a lot more smooth. And plus Franklin was the closest to the tow truck anyway. Because those are consistent switches. Like, I was talking about consistent and inconsistent switches before. Most of the time, if a character was used in a mission, they will have a consistent switch afterwards. So you may have noticed that when I switched to Franklin, he said some dialogue. He is always there saying that dialogue after Merryweather Heist. It's just unfortunate that in a handful of spots, there's not a consistent switch for the mission we want to do. I think I'm gonna save like less than a minute, but it's kind of hard to tell. It's hard doing that math, but I'm gonna save a little bit of time. I definitely haven't lost a minute 53. What really hurt me here was the lack of a tow truck and a lack of an early tow truck and waiting for assassination. That whole scramble, especially me trying to be smart and get another vehicle. Had I just been patient, I would have just lost the time associated with having a worse car, rather than losing the time with trying to get a new car, failing, and then, yeah, that was terrible. But you just can't know how the RNG is going to go. Had the assassination waited a little bit longer to spawn, I would have saved time getting a new vehicle. The game is mean sometimes.
All right, T, I'm in position. What's the ETA?
Looking for him. I got a visual on the target. Should be with you any moment.
Sorry, I'm just
You better get on your way.
I don't often do ending C because this is the only category that it's associated with. And I made new strats 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I'm just trying to refresh them in my mind because they are quite different from the old strats. I mean, even doing the old strats just a little bit better would help me, but we'll see how I go. Of course, if this run did get accepted, I would practice ending C for like an entire day. which I kind of already did, but I would I'd probably be in there in the practice room or whatever, just practicing ending C over and over again. It is a hard mission. So yeah, this is just us taking the money. These guys are fairly consistent, so I know where they're going to spawn, so I'm just going to chuck some grenades to blow them up when they get here. With helicopters, one of the fastest ways to get rid of them is to shoot them in the tail. Like so. I switched weapons there to reload before I go off here. This is inconvenient. Where's the third guy? Okay. The car being flipped up like that blocks my sight from about 4 guys, which made it hard to find the third guy there. I don't need to kill a specific third guy, just any third guy. I need 3 guys before I can switch. Okay. I should be more confident myself and just switch back to Michael and Franklin immediately when I fire, but I'm just not a confident guy with that shot. This is worse than I thought it was going to be, I'll be frank with you. I'm saving some time, but so like perfect RNG would have been switching to Franklin, getting an immediate fast car rather than taking the black car, then going to assassination without any delay, and all that kind of added up, and the lack of the tow truck. And the B not spawning immediately as well. But I expect that at least 45 seconds of time save here. I'm not going to get it, which is unfortunate. I'm going to have... So, I mean, I can still world record. I've got 1:30-ish to save on the final mission. But, I mean, let's be real. It's not super likely. I was in the zone, especially in the second half, during the world record, which is why I was so devastated to lose so much time on the final split. Yeah, that's really harsh.
What is this shit?
Jesus. How did I lose that much time? Man, I would love to go back in time how much time I lost with that assassination thing. It didn't feel like that much. Jesus. Whatever. So this is good RNG, getting a vehicle out of here.
I'm gonna be using your car.
I will just have to play even better. But yeah, so again, coming out of the hospital, don't know what car I'm gonna get. I'm fortunate to get a good car. Of course, it is a short drive, so it doesn't really matter what car I get, but it does add up, right? You know. A run with all perfect car spawns can, you know, save a minute or 2 or whatever over a person who just gets average car spawns or whatever. So this is a very long drive where we get to see all of San Andreas, or at least the outskirts of San Andreas. For me, it is not very fun, but I mean, when you play it casually the first time, it is quite nice. You get to drive super fast. Of course, this is just us. So we've met Devin Weston, and Devin Weston's like, hey, I've got a job for you guys. Go around and steal me all these cars, and then I'll pay you for the cars. We never get paid. Spoiler. Or rather, he's like, hey, I'll keep the money and I'll put it into a mutual trust in my name, and then, you know, let it mature and then give you the money later, or some garbage excuse, you know. This is us meeting 2 street racers who have 2 very fast cars. Unfortunately, for the speedrun, we never get to drive those cars because on our drive back, Michael and Trevor have the 2 faster cars, but Franklin's ability makes driving this red car still faster. Not that much faster, mind you, but it's like 20 seconds, so that's, you know, significant time.
I'm telling you, 2.7 millimeters. What the fuck does this
Hey, how about we see which one of you two is for real?
This mission is a bit more nerve-wracking in 100% because of a collectible that you need to get that's under a bridge. It requires a pretty precise setup and one very annoying jump, but in every other category, this is just a smooth drive. You know, they'll rubber band ahead of you always, and you just kind of follow behind them. The traffic is fairly scripted. I haven't spent the time analyzing the pixel perfect location of every vehicle, but I can say with some confidence that if it isn't entirely scripted, it's in the majority scripted. Certainly the end, you know, certain animals jump out at the exact same time and da-da-da. But yeah, there's not even any curbs that I need to worry about hitting here. It's just very simple driving. This would be reading every donation that exists, you know. I mean, I can thank people like, thank you so much. Who was the first resub? Comedy. Thank you so much, Comedy, for the resub. Appreciate the support, dude. And Gore, also appreciate the sub, man. I hope you both continue to enjoy the sub badge and the emotes, my friend. Thank you, friends. Whoops. And thank you for the 10 bits, 11 bits, Jake, and 10 bits sample, and 1 bit, Daniel. The blue car there has fallen behind in a scripted way, and now I get to drive another bad bike. I don't know what it is with Rockstar. Like, there are so many good bikes in this game, but the majority of the time they give you a bike, they give you the worst bike. Doing wheelies. So there is no speedometer in this game. Like, I can't see exactly how fast I'm going, but at one point I did mod my game to put a speedometer in, and I did a run checking some stuff out. Doing wheelies on this bike, like, you can't even really do wheelies, but I mean, leaning back does not make you go faster, unfortunately. Given that I got a good car at the beginning, I would imagine I will save the majority of this 15 seconds at the end. It's hard to say though, right? This is one of those things that's really hard to time in regards to maybe there's some slightly faster way of doing this. Like, maybe if I sit on the right hand side of the road, they will go faster rather than the left. But what testing I've done, I haven't found any way necessarily to make them go faster, other than myself just trying to go as fast as I can. It's just irritating when the mechanisms that you can use to test different strategies just don't really exist. When you have emulator games, you can test things with save states perfectly and stuff. I don't have that luxury. So some things I've wanted to test in the past have taken, like, you know, I have to play like through half an hour of the game just to get to the point where I want to test something. Not because I can't make a save file for the testing, but because I'm concerned that the save file itself will impact the viability of the strat or the information that I receive. Like, I've spent hours testing the smallest things in this game sometimes. I dream one day of getting this category below 630. It's possible now, it's just not very likely. The RNG has to be pretty solid. Like, you look at this run and go, I even played amazingly, like I've played okay. And if I didn't get the bad long stretch switch, I'd be within, you know, 20 seconds of world record. And I'd have a minutes of mistakes that I could potentially make before the end and still get world record. But we'll see how we go.
Don't mess up the cars, you hear me? So Devin's lawyer says we gotta take them to Hayes Autos in South LA. I'm gonna be there well ahead of you. Asshole.
But yeah, again, fairly simple drive. There is some small brake boosting that I can do here where, you know, as I explained before, I put my power on and I use braking to give myself a boost. But in testing, I'm not convinced it actually saves time. Because I'm already going so fast, and the amount of time I lose slowing down the game with the power just isn't worth it. Tapping it on and off here to avoid hitting cars and slowing down is still advantageous though. A little bit late on that. Still, in my testing I found that all along here you get some pretty nice speed boost by using the power intermittently. It's just hard to say exactly how intermittently it is without having a speedometer. Because I'm not making the exact same movements every single run because of the traffic being varied on this last part. There's a jump over there that I used to do as well for 100%. Because that's a large part of what 100% is, trying to fit in a lot of the collectibles and stuff into the missions themselves. There's a few curves that I can get here if I can swing myself over here a little bit. See, as I say, I don't think they have that much of an impact, especially when I'm already going this fast, but they do give you a little bit of speed. Wow, okay, that was not kind. I would, T, because you suck. Clearly you need some kind of a mystical power to beat Franklin. This is what happens when you look at the damn timer, Matt. Look away from the screen, just for 1 second, the game's like, aha, you're not looking at the screen. Time to lose time. What time is it? It's losing time o'clock. Barely saving any time. Ah, terrible. Like, where did all that time go? I wasn't that bad. Where did the time go? There was a little bit of running for the car at the beginning, but it's just not generous at all. I want a good car here. That's not bad.
Nobody needs to get hurt, alright?
I mean, I lost a second or something because I didn't skip the cutscene as fast as I could have. I think I only lost like 4 seconds or something because of the vehicle. I didn't get the best vehicle in the world. I got a good vehicle though, so I mean, that couldn't have lost me more than 2 seconds. Where did like the other